I feel grateful I'm going to give voice to his words. Dark Creek. A dark creek runs below the floorboards of my evening house, and it lifts me from a dreamy sleep. I follow the sound down the basement stairs. I remember myself from earlier in the day, a child made of flames, standing in the garden. A spell towers over me, like a sky full of enormous frozen branches. I am yearning for someone beautiful on the other side of fear, someone to comfort my trembling flesh. My feet touch the soft, dry earth of the basement, and I feel a solid gold thread twisting tighter around my heart. The night watches the hunter return to his bed as the hunted. I'm tired of what is sickening me. The cold fog always settling on the back of my neck, needing to pull the scarf tighter, wildly eager to disappoint the ancient ghosts pacing in the smoky attic. I'm calling out for love from the banks of a dark creek. My vibrant belly receives signals from across the foreign border. I mean to step forward as if it were my direction, but I step back as the muscular buck standing on the night highway, antlers pointing in the four directions, staring down the headlights and steam rising off my back. I feel no need to save anyone now. A dark creek runs outside my abandoned house. I wade into the dark as that body of flames and begin to roll over the dry grass, torching everything until I'm the mad, blackened world. Flames rise into that frozen sky, prayers like rockets that return to earth as rain falling. The sky pulled apart by tender arms. Children flee the burning house, the incense of its walls rich with grief and loss. I'm led down through the tall, sharp bushes to the dry riverbed. I'm ready to die. I've come to my senses. Let what has come for me take me for its own. I lie down to be eaten by the night tigress. The warm stars are mine. She enters my body as a gold thread weaves around my heart until it melts. Cold water soaks my clothes, rises to cover me. The flames are bright under the flowing waters of Dark Creek. The sky now sees the bright eye of my body, open like the moon. I'm not done. Thank you, Patrick. Carolyn Ingram. Robin Leslie Jacobson. Well, I've spent a lifetime trying to avoid the limelight and being a performer at the same time. It's two very different things. And I find myself all of a sudden being quite in the limelight here. I want to thank Catlin for passing the torch, and Calvin for being one of my wonderful editors in our group, and all the wonderful people who contributed to this anthology. And I want to thank the board for their vote of confidence. I'm going to have to hold this close because otherwise I'm not going to be able to see it. Since the rains came, El Nino, San Anselmo, California. I've been writing sonnets for weeks now, wishful thinking, some boundary or container for the mudslides, flooding. Tonight, the sobs of an old woman on CNN, her shoulders shaking in the rain as a crane crew wrecks her half-ruined house,
so it won't fall on the one below. No time to rescue anything inside. Her slickered back to the camera, anonymity, her last defense. Between storms, our own gutters cleared by the landlord's handyman, beer breath giving away a thin grasp. He forgets to clear the downspouts or doesn't know to, always a key piece left undone. We find out only when another front bullies through, torrents off the roof by the door, moat circling the foundation. And any time now, I could be that woman sobbing on the news. Our weather big enough it's gone tabloid. With my lined legal pad, I sit on the bed I never make, cast slant rhymes, edge around the iambic. Any time now, our house could go sliding down the hill, clear-cut live oak and bay, their scent carried on soaked air, river of mud, reminding us what we're made of.
Thanks, Robin. Helen Kerner, S.E. Lamour, Bonnie Long couldn't be here tonight. Cesar Love, Terry Lucas, Ann Lynn, Lily Iona McKenzie, Roy Mash,
Yeah. I want to thank everyone for coming, and just a short ad. So one of these guys is giving feedback here. Marin Poetry Center is currently looking for a membership/corresponding secretary. If you live in Marin and are interested in getting involved with a wonderful, rewarding group, let me know.
We're very fun.
Absolutely. So my water poem is called Cannonball. It was a great pow of a dive made for boys who specialized in feats of little skill and spectacular effect. Impudent competition for the God-shaped swan, all breast and feather and grace, the jackknife that released itself to slit the water like a lover's hand slipping into an open robe. What was elegance but a thing to be expunged, undone by the effrontery of a nice fat splurge, the gaudy broadside of an eclair shrapneling the cheeks of chubby summer. Goodbye, cruel world. The wrecking ball of the body cymbal crashed into the smug surface. Depth charge churning in a blue fury of bubbles. Cool nucleus of boy sizzling in the silent below. Was ever anything more splendiferous than the sheer stupid pleasure of making a mess? To geyser up like truth, star-shot across a world smithereened with watery rubble, and the shrieks of poolside girls, dismayed by the brash, flamboyant, uncontainable kaboom of you.
Kathleen McClung.
It is both a blessing and a curse to follow Roy Mash. That was great, Roy. I'm going to read a sestina that's based on a historical event. In 1883, a lighthouse keeper and his assistant drowned while rowing a small boat back to their families on Año Nuevo Island near Santa Cruz. And my poem is in the voice of the lighthouse keeper's daughter, Ida. My poem is called Ida's Song, 1945. Surely strange to his crew, ragged shrieks of fog whistle on a cloudless day. Through his spyglass, the captain discerned the flag upside down on our island, a distress signal he knew from years at sea. Perhaps they carried pistols, the sailors he dispatched. She never said, my mother. Perhaps she saw through grief only shoulders, heads, and faces. One had red hair, she said, and one had none at all. And I, what do I remember of the day my father drowned? Small, not yet 5, I grew dizzy, whirling among seagulls that day, impatient for the new doll from town. The one with the prettiest face my father had promised, hunkered down beside me on the dock before rowing away with Mr. Colburn. Never break your word, my mother instructed with my numbers, my ABCs. Yet my father broke his. Returning home, his boat capsized. The sea, I learned, broke every word. We left the island, all of us, my mother and I, Mrs. Colburn and her baby. I never wanted to come back, never wanted to pass another day among the gulls, the sea lions barking, barking. A sheriff wrote down the facts. 2 whistle keepers' widows, castaways, linked arms, faced tragedy with valor, sounding the whistle for help. Were their faces grim or streaked with tears? I remember the swish of skirts, but cannot see their eyes. I hear still the rumble of waves as I sit down to write each new keeper's wife a note of welcome, wishing her all good fortune on Año Nuevo Island. I tell her about the day the ocean stole him, about the contours of rescue. I never ask if a doll has floated up beside the dock, never burden her with keepsakes unkept. My own face now lined with age, my daughter's far from here. Each day I read news of air raids, submarine battles in the North Sea, top secret work in New Mexico. Perhaps this bomb we build will end all wars, perhaps all life. I hear talk in recent letters of closing down the lighthouse when the war ends. They will not tear down the keeper's house itself. No, it will open to the seals, who never need chairs, lamps, or doors. And the barking will go on all through the night, in every room where women's faces and men's once rested on pillows, once whispered or dreamed. And the sea will roar back, not an answer, not a song, every day, after all of us sink down into earth or water. Beloved faces, bones and ash only, words kind or cruel, never spoken again. Day will break, fog will form, no stranger to the sea. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara McDonald. Robert Aquinas McNally. Mark Meyerding.
I'm Mark Meyerding, and I have asked Calvin Allegren, by virtue of his excellent accent, to read my poem to us.
Excuse me. Is there fog back there? This is called slipping to liquid. Ain't it grand when a body goes all golly-wobble into water? Like you're just off the thunky highboard, and suddenly, hello, you're deaf. And all them little bubbles snaking up so jolly ragdoll-like. Or on the paid-up table, such oils on your skin and some lobmas massaging fingers, dough rolling your bums like steak and kidney pie. And in a little while you'll get to feeling so less skeleton and arms and more spread out tomato saucy. Even at the car wash, you can settle yourself inside, ease the gears into neutral, and watch the white suds, steeplechases and slappings of crazy quilt swashers, and at the end of monsoon that withers all them water spottles off your squeaky windscreen. Never mind for tittle-tattle and alley gossip, a body's got to douse of a day. Got to alterate from Macno Katie to marmalade. Oh, my dearie, dive your dreadies down into the marigold plunge just once. Don't let some cockamamie matron say when to shut off your spigot.
Oh, I'm in the position where I could say so many things and I can't. Woo. Phyllis Meshulam.
Hello. This has a rather long epigram, and it's probably the only poem that's written from the point of view of a baby sea turtle. Here's the epigram. The earliest known sea turtle fossils are about 150 million years old. Destruction of feeding and nesting habitats and pollution of the world's oceans are taking a serious toll. Only an estimated 1 in 1,000 to 10,000 hatchlings will survive to adulthood. The natural obstacles are staggering, but it is the increasing threats caused by humans that are driving them to extinction. Sea Turtle Conservancy. Between hourglass and sea. It is an hourglass, this nest of sand and more sand, crowded with parchment shells and my fellows' flippers. Through bead curtains, sun felt like a razor on new hatched eyes, but sand dollar moon and clay fire stars, those and surf symbols coax me out, carrying my own dim shell onto Earth's crust, pointing my head and stretching the aged folds of my young neck. I twitch forward past the nest of death, watch stamps of dogfoot and self-seeking trails of ants, past rapt, coarse shrieks towards the drum roll of surf on moon. I displace heaps of small crystals, leaving my impression, a zagged track toward the sand shattering sound. First slap of salt water sets me back, but mouths ever for me. I track. Then am homespun into salt, wet shivers, where other mouths are rapture ravenous. Air and water rattled into one.
Stuart Mincer, Stephanie Moore,
Revenant Rain. I recognize this rain, zigzagging down the garden window. It's a particular dance, drops joining drops in succession, falling off the window ledge beyond my sight. These drops formed from the same water I watched patter against a window pane at my grandma's house years ago, descending to earth, running into streams, evaporating, condensing in clouds, returning after all this time, performing the same drifting ballet to the same sudden fall from the edge. Watching raindrops wend, flow, splash, disappear. I sip a cup of Earl Grey tea, my grandma's favorite and mine. I breathe in the warm steam, scents of lavender and bergamot, circling back to my grandmother's porch, finding in rain's silver song the sound of her voice that will call me home again at the end of day.
Meryl Natchez,
So, like John Hart, I find that this isn't exactly the most recent version of this poem, but we'll just do the best we can. Last words. Packing up the machine that sucked the water from the sodden floor after Roto-Rooter left, I'm thinking about the note Lieutenant Kaleshnikov, the ranking officer, penned in the submerged dark of the Kursk, at the bottom of the Barents Sea, when whatever happened had happened, and there were 23 of them left, all in Section 9, the furthest from the reactors. He wrote it as the backup systems failed, and despite tapping SOS on the hull, they knew they were not getting out. As the air supply thinned, the note changed from the hopeless specifics of military detail to a love letter to Olga, his wife. I'm thinking about this as my hands coil the cords and hoist the heavy body of the machine into the trunk of the car, because we're always thinking about something, mostly not knowing how much time we have left in the dark hold, riding blind.
thank you. Patricia Nelson, Stephanie Noble,
Abandon hope. At 4, I was proud I could swim with an inner tube, but that's not really swimming. Hope offers similar support, drifting along, cushioned from currents, until punctured. Abandoning hope, I'm free to stroke, chart a course, dive deep, surface buoyant. But if someone were about to drown, I'd toss them something to stay afloat. Maybe a lifesaver, maybe hope.
Thanks, Stephanie. I'm going to adjust this a little. There we go. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right. Kimberly Nunes? Nunes? Excuse me. Thank you.
Hi. So, for anyone who may not know, obrigada is the word in Portuguese for thank you. Obrigada. I am in my hotel room writing poetry, and Antonietta comes in. It is Sunday, and I wonder why we can't skip today. I could make my own bed, or leave it undone, yet I like how she stacks pillows, rolls towels, how she turns the edge of the throw. She's stripping sheets now, and I pantomime quickly from the desk across the room. You don't do that every day, do you? There's the water, her labor, but mostly I like my scent on the sheet, how a bed becomes a flower. She signs back with a rolling hand and creased brow only every few days, and now, why do I need to feel better? In the bathroom, I hear breaths and sniffs. She sprays the cleanser and squeak wipes the mirror. She's pretty and blonde, and the odor of her cigarettes clings as she lugs linens and bottles of water. Sometimes the breathing sounds like crying. Some days she snaps her gum. She points at my cup, old with milk foam crust. May I take it? And arranges clean port glasses. A replenished bowl of raisins refills the crystal carafe. Obrigada, obrigada, we each say, and I wave as she backs away, pushing buckets and vacuums into the hall, where I hear her sneeze and sense she's happy to hear her phone ring. Now the scent of orange comes through the window as I stand to cross the room, to hang the shh sign on the knob, and return to my last line, something about purple avenues with marble sidewalks, how in Lisbon the jacaranda blossoms swirl.
Vivian Oles. Renee Owen.
Hello, what a crowd. For those of you that don't know, this genre is haibun, which is evolved from the travel diaries of Basho. It's called Mothership. The sky, a turbulent mix of black and white, a stone gathering on the horizon. Gulls cry, dashed about on the wind. He wades deep out in the surf, holding the box overhead, stopping at that juncture where ocean spills into lagoon. Stretching strong arms high, his hands safe from the sea's reach. When he can go no further, he turns towards me. I pause, reluctant to give the signal. With my nod, he flips the box upside down. A rush of tide takes her. Ash floats on the surface, then sinks. Only the scarlet leaves we scatter show her trail. She'll continue to ebb and flow in our lives, buoying us along, sometimes sinking us in her shadow. Beached seal, her eye sockets sing of the deep.
Kate Pepper.
Hi. Okay. Teeny tiny poem. After the flood. After the flailing trees and faltering lights. After the fatigue of rain. After all avenues are rivers, and under fallen elms are squashed cars. After the news programs have told everyone to stay inside, a camera crew on the station's roof spots a man waiting in his corner store, bucketing water as if.
Connie Post. Oh, thank you. Andy Plum, Selena, and Selena Ann Shepherd.
Hello. I'm glad none of you can see my stocking seam. That is actually a run. So where am I here? Andy Plum, Selena Ann Shepherd. I'm whatever I am. It's called Suburb Falls. I was raised in the town of Suburb Falls. My name was Johnny at the time. I played games and tender slips, born of my mother, who slept in a winter chair in the living room and woke up at dawn as my father stole out the door. When the heat sent me running for cover, I imagined our lawn a lake and dove deep in a life bathing suit and swam as if a girl who could not be tamed, who could not be gathered up and taken to harvest, who could not be forgotten when memories grow weak. I went to school in traces of taffeta, and my lips secretly painted. My teachers would shake their heads and banish me to the back of the room, where I'd color feverishly outside the lines and wait for the bell to set me free.
Connie Post.
I wanted to add my thanks to the whole team that put the anthology together and Marin Poetry Center. It's quite a drive for me. I drove all the way from Livermore, but I feel so strongly about the community here. I told my daughter I'm going to my Marin Poetry Center family. So if you do see me slip out a little early, though, it's because it's quite a long drive back as well, but I'll try to stay till the end. This poem, I will just briefly say I have a complicated relationship with sleep. Yeah. The title is Sleep Arrhythmia. I hear of a dog at 1 a.m. scratching at the back door. I go to let him in, but he is deep in sleep. I hear a twig brushing up against a broken window. I get the flashlight out, but there is no twig, no window, not even a tree or the slightest breeze. I break off the jagged thought that has been scratching the backside of my brain. I tell myself, you need to be more zen. I get a drink of water, take a few Tylenol, and go back to bed. I know I must make myself comfortable with these old branches lodged at the foot of my bed. They have traveled on the white water of 1,000 banished rivers.
Yvonne Postel.
Such a rain. Under the quiet of the rain, deep at the end of a green-leafed lane, a lover whispers another's name. While far in the distance, a speeding train is chased through the night by its own refrain, under the quiet of the rain. And wild, a winging crane furrows the sky like a plow on a plain, as lover whispers the loved one's name. And nearer, as close as the window pane, fate weaves and etches its endless skein under the quiet of the rain. Nearer yet, two hearts aflame pulse white as stars on the night's dark frame, as lovers whisper each other's names. Love surges a grandeur in every vein, and never shall morning dawn the same after the quiet of that rain, after that whispering of lover's name.
There's a feedback problem going on here.
Yeah, this moment I'm hearing some
It's
feedback
getting more
there.
and more.
Okay, thanks. Angelica Quirk?
Is this mic better?
Both mics.
Both mics? Okay. I visit with my husband Germany each year, and this is a poem from Hamburg, Germany. It's called Teufelsbrück, and it's in 3 parts. Teufelsbrück means Devil's Bridge. We stroll along the Elbe River from Blankenese to Teufelsbrück, past white houses and cottages, squatting along crooked lanes that lead up and down. We stop at a cafe near the Himmelsleiter, a ladder to heaven ascending 59 steps. Poplars, like guardians of thin air, stand watch over distant creatures hiding in the dismal pilings under the bridge. We stop here for a moment, for decades, inhaling this morning that cannot be undone, not with cafe latte, nor with the screeching gulls. We cannot escape conversations within earshot of sand stars, of scars and wails from barges. A bearded man sentenced to a life of angst opens his mouth, a trapdoor to a faraway place, and tells of his mother shot at 19 while fleeing East Prussia from Russian soldiers, of his fathers guiding their horse along fields of ice and snow, clutching hands and keepsakes kept in apple crates. Seated across, a woman nods from time to time, then pulls out of nowhere the litany of her own escape across a frozen lake, a trek of refugees pulling carts through dark, brooding nights. She watched a sled slip into a hole in the ice, then plunge into unforgiving waters. Finally, in Pillau, a merchant vessel took them across the Baltic. I remember Katie's story, her bad dreams about Hasso, her German shepherd, left behind howling like a wolf in a house near Königsberg, now called Kaliningrad. Everyone has a story, eyewitness of chaos. I see it in each face. They arrived at the shores of this river like shipwrecked passengers from lands far away. They tell of their exodus from childhood dreams and tears
until their sons, their daughters no longer want to hear. They used to come from Prussia, now they arrive from Syria. They come without their belongings, without their prayer rugs, their pride, thousands of them every day. I see them on the bus, the train. They sleep on floors in convention halls with the baggage of homesick memories of villages destroyed. They arrive at the shore of this river, thousands of them every day, shipwrecked passengers from lands far away.
Thank you. Jean Rana. Gregory W. Randall. Susan Robinson, and Joyce Clemens will read for her.
I'm not Joyce. I'm Lucy. That's all right. It's not your mistake. Joyce couldn't make it tonight. Fortunately, all three of us live together, so it all worked out. So this is called Looking Glass. Ribs of an unmoored antenna splay on our deck, glass paneled against wind from the west. Its rods manage prone to function, so we step around the metal needles to check relative sizes of land and sea. Today, we could spread a picnic at the tip of our land closest to the water. The ocean's Pacific, only a little swollen, pushy maybe, but not in a rage to scour a bigger basin. It's a respite to stand and watch the waves scuttle foam toward the point where the two streams used to collide in a rush from high ground. Even in drought on the hill to my right, green holds its own against beetle-checked blotches of brown. There's time to sit behind this mirrors I can look through. What I catch up close is me, feet flat in a forget-me-not blue Adirondack chair, beside the aluminum aerial and its spinal cable, which bores clean through the pain, like the past tunneling into the future. The cord snakes white over the widowed creek, glides through the yellowed bushes, and ducks the skirts of a dervish cypress, stopped mid-spin in quiet air. Beyond its limbs, the graying line climbs just to the shadow of the mother pine, so grand she must stand for something everyone else can believe in, scanning the world from the edge of the cliff, unmoved by the view of tomorrow. I think to touch the cable or nudge the bar it's harnessed to, just to see where that might take me, but leave them be, lest the trees succumb and we lose the signal.
Thank you. Sherry Rose Walker. Lee Rossi. I thank Kay Ryan for her wonderful contribution, her generous contribution. I asked particularly for this fabulous poem, Niagara River. Thank you, Kay. Bruce Sams. Good.
Good evening. This little poem is a pantun, which is, as you probably know, an old Malaysian form in which the lines repeat and give sort of a interweaving effect. This was entitled A Claustrophobic on Noah's Ark. What if the rain should never end? This drumming racks me night and day, my spirit soaked, my soul offend. As hope recedes, I learn to pray. This drumming racks me night and day, my body begs to roam outside. As hope recedes, I learn to pray and watch with fear the rising tide. My body begs to roam outside the clouds of shrouds in which I lie, and watch with fear the rising tide. Has God decided I must die? The clouds of shrouds in which I lie, my spirit soaked, my soul offend. Has God decided I must die? What if the rain should never end?
Thank you. Charlotte Schmid, Sandy Skull, Jan Seagrave,
So my poem is really inspired by a fortune-telling device, which many of you may know, the I Ching. And I threw that a lot when I was a teenager. And this poem is inspired actually by one of the hexagrams, which goes, if you are sincere, you have light and success. Perseverance brings good fortune. It furthers one to cross the great water. So of course my poem is titled, Crossing the Great Water. In December, my father drove us to the forest in our green, round-shouldered 49 Ford. My sister and I giggled in the back. He parked on the roadside, pulled on black boots, his Harvard crimson sweater, hoisted a red and silver axe, and led us in the slush towards Accotink Creek, thinly iced over and impassable. I held my breath beneath my scarf, but at the fork we left the scraggly oaks, and then we found the pines. There, shaded by its parents, was the perfect one. We all knew at once. He chopped until his white breath clung to his face. My father panted and hauled our tree to the car. Laughing at our good fortune, we sang carols going home. When we returned in early March, I was still too small to take the thick cable foot bridge over the creek. My sister dared me anyway. Both her feet inched sideways on the lower wire, while her feet and her clenched mittens sidled over on the upper. But I looked down from the edge of the bank. Spuming brown ice water raced into glacial boulders and pulled down the trees, succumbing to the thaw. I weighed my fear against a day of her taunting, then backed away to let my sister win. By spring, the tributary had turned around the tightrope bridge, stranding the anchor tree on its own island beyond reach. This side still held me with its own impossibilities. I sought the primitive plants who had been people, witch hazel with her chartreuse petal hair, and Jack in the pulpit who preached to little girls cautionary woodland tales. All the while, the force of old growth had pushed Virginia bluebell sprouts up through layers of leaf litter, composting before Columbus. In April, at last, they blossomed into a violet cloud, hovering knee-high to the hickories, waiting to fly me over Accotink Creek.
Thanks, Jan. Proto Sereno, as you know, is our wonderful poet laureate of Marin, and she is off doing her duties tonight and can't be with us, and sends you all her best. I thank Kim Stafford, guest poet. I know a number of you have worked with him, and he was so envious of this community and so pleased to be a part of this anthology. Prue Starr, Doreen Stock,
Not only did my cell phone go off, but then I knocked over the microphone. I'd like to express gratitude to the editors, to the board of the Marin Poetry Center, and all the poets, present and not present, who brought this poetry center to its present moment. This is a Sausalito poem. Time and Place, for Jackie Cutler. If this isn't a poem, I don't know what is. My blue 2009 Prius wheeling up rain-slick Bridgeway Avenue, passing a certain bayside bench, just as my friend Jackie jogs up to it, ballerina in mauve jogging suit reaches one long arm out with a kiss on her fingertips, planting it on a certain brass plaque, the one that was spared our current plague of stolen brass plaques on the boardwalk, which mentions ships and dawn, wings and true love, and the name of her beloved, who just rustles like a sail filling with wind, moving to the corner of her eye, my eye, the teardrop balancing on the eyelid, prisming, looking for one green wave to land on, salt on salt, water on water, love on memory, on.
And also thank you to guest poet Joseph Stroud, with whom I know a number of you know and worked, fellow poet who was very pleased to be able to be part of this anthology. Mary K. Sweeney, Christine Vovakis, Jean Wagner, Patrice Warrender, and the last poet, Judy Wells. Well, I think also, oh, Judy, she is here. Oh, good, good, good. Yay! Yes. Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, I'm glad you. Is that all right? Oh, please. I'm glad. This is a wonderful way to end with the last poem in the book.
Well, it's wonderful to be here and see so many poets that I worked with a couple of years ago, and people I've spent time with at readings together. My poem is on page 24, and it's called Watering. I watered our garden today. Tea roses in every color I made you plant when my brother wasn't speaking to me. In December rain, clay soil hard to penetrate. Water sprinkled the antique prickly stems of old brush, yellow ladybanks, reine de violette. We planted them together, deep in their drunken wafting, when we were new. Transplanted them a year later to keep them alive. I wasn't sure how long to spray the rhododendrons. We bought too many on our anniversary trip. They don't thrive here, stay scrawny. How do I manage the just spent peonies you purchased for Mother's Day, hoping to make me happier? The watering took the better part of morning. We can barely see the Cecile Brunner. You cut back too far. We only learned this year, just let her flower.
Is there anyone else here who didn't, for some reason, get called or would like to read their poem? Well, it's very hard for me to know that this is the end of an incredibly rich evening. We've all hung in there, and I feel sad because it's the end of my journey with you in a certain way, but so grateful to have all of these poems that I can return to again and again, and I'm really looking forward to 2017. Thank you very much for coming and for all you do for poetry.